Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's jump into today's story. It was a crisp, cool morning in the heart of the city. The cafe was bustling with the usual crowd, the smell of freshly brewed coffee filling the air, the soft hum of conversation in the background, and the sound of plates clinking as waitstaff moved swiftly between tables. But at one corner of the room, Emma Brooks couldn't help but feel out of place. Her second-hand dress clung awkwardly to her frame, the fabric a little too tight, the seams starting to show their age. Her shoes were scuffed, her hands trembling slightly as she nervously checked her phone. She had promised her best friend, Jenny, that she would go through with this blind date, even though every fiber of her being screamed that she didn't belong here. She stood in front of the coffee counter, glancing around the room, scanning for the man she was supposed to meet. Table 7, she muttered under her breath, almost as if repeating the number would make it easier to find the person waiting for her. Her heart was racing, and she felt the pit of anxiety in her stomach deepen as she caught sight of a man sitting alone at a table near the back. His dark hair was neatly styled, his sharp suit perfectly pressed. He seemed so out of place in her world, like he belonged to another realm, one where she had no access. As she approached him, she felt her hands clam up. She forced a smile, trying to calm her nerves. "Hi, you must be Kevin. I'm Emma. Nice to meet you." She sat down across from him, still unsure of what to say next. Kevin looked up at her, blinking in confusion. He wasn't quite sure what to make of her. She wasn't anything like the women he usually met. They were always polished, poised, and effortlessly confident. But Emma? She was different. Something about her made him pause. She didn't seem intimidated by the lavish surroundings, even though she clearly didn't fit in. And for some reason, that intrigued him. He opened his mouth to correct her, to tell her that he wasn't Kevin, but something made him hesitate. He glanced down at his phone, seeing a message pop up from his business partner, canceling their meeting. He didn't have anything pressing to do now, and the sincerity in Emma's eyes was refreshing. He decided to play along, just for a little while longer. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Right, blind dates are something else," he said, leaning back in his chair. Emma laughed nervously, relieved that he wasn't immediately annoyed by the mix-up. "Tell me about it. Jenny's been trying to set me up for months, but I've been too busy with work to care." She took a sip of her water, her hands still shaking a little. She could feel her nerves start to ease as they continued talking. She shared stories about her job as a waitress, her struggles to pay rent, and her dream of opening her own art studio one day. The more she spoke, the more she realized how much she was enjoying the conversation. Lucas, or Kevin as she thought he was surprisingly easy to talk to. It felt like they were connecting, despite the awkward beginning. They talked for what felt like hours. The more Emma spoke, the more Lucas found himself captivated by her honesty and her vulnerability. She didn't try to impress him, didn't try to be someone she wasn't. She was just Emma, and somehow that made her even more intriguing to him. As the evening wore on, Emma couldn't help but think how nice it was to talk to someone who didn't judge her. It felt like a breath of fresh air, and she couldn't help but wonder why Kevin, or Lucas, hadn't corrected her earlier. It wasn't until her phone buzzed with a message from Jenny that the illusion shattered. "Hey, Emma, where are you? I'm at table 7, waiting to meet you." Emma's face turned bright red. She stared at her phone, horrified. "Oh my God," she muttered to herself. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas's smile faltered for a second, guilt flashing in his eyes. He stood up, slightly taken aback by her sudden realization. "No, I'm not." Emma's stomach dropped, and she quickly grabbed her coat. "I'm so sorry, I thought you were someone else. This is so embarrassing." She stood up to leave, her face burning with shame. But before she could rush out the door, Lucas caught her arm gently. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. "I don't mind." "Really?" But Emma was already gone, bolting out of the cafe, her heart racing. Lucas watched her leave, a strange mix of regret and curiosity swirling in his chest. He hadn't meant to mislead her, but for some reason, he didn't want their conversation to end just yet. He found himself wondering if he'd ever see her again. And why the thought of never seeing her again bothered him so much. Stay tuned as this unexpected encounter between two people from different worlds leads to a chance at something neither of them could have predicted. It had been 2 days since the awkward mix-up at the cafe, and Emma couldn't stop thinking about it. She hadn't expected to feel so embarrassed, but the more she replayed the conversation in her head, the more she realized that she might have made a bigger impact than she thought. She was still trying to shake off the feeling when she heard a familiar buzz from her phone. It was a message from an unknown number. "Hi Emma, this is Lucas. I'm the one you met at the cafe the other day. I know things got off to a strange start, but I'd like to meet again. I promise, no more confusion this time. Would you be open to coffee sometime? I promise it will be worth your time." She stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the screen. Part of her wanted to ignore it, thinking it was just some mistake. But another part of her felt an odd pull to respond. Why had he reached out? What was he expecting? After all, he was the one who had been mistakenly thought of as someone else. She couldn't shake the image of his warm smile, the kindness in his voice when he spoke, and the way he seemed genuinely interested in her, even though she wasn't the person he had thought she was. She bit her lip and typed back, hesitating for a moment before hitting send. "Sure, coffee sounds good. When and where?" "Within minutes," he replied. "How about tomorrow afternoon? There's a small cafe I like. I'll text you the details." The next day, Emma stood in front of the cafe, feeling slightly nervous but determined to get through it. She had no idea why she was so nervous. Maybe it was the fact that this felt like an opportunity she hadn't expected. Maybe it was because, for once, someone seemed genuinely interested in her without the usual pretenses. She wasn't sure, but she hoped that this time would go better. When she entered the cafe, Lucas was already there, sitting at a corner table. He looked even more attractive in person, dressed casually in a simple jacket and jeans, his dark hair still neatly styled. He stood up as soon as she walked in and smiled. "Emma," he said, his voice warm and inviting. "Thanks for agreeing to meet again." "No problem," she replied, taking the seat across from him. "I'm glad we could clear things up." Lucas chuckled, his eyes softening as he looked at her. "I'm not sure if anything really needs clearing up. I'm just glad we can have a real conversation now." They chatted about work, life, and everything in between. Lucas was surprisingly down-to-earth, considering what she had learned about his work in tech. He asked about her dreams, her passion for art, and her struggles with making ends meet. Emma felt herself relaxing around him, her initial awkwardness melting away with every laugh they shared. As the conversation continued, Emma couldn't help but notice how different he was from the typical businessman she had encountered. He didn't treat her like she was inferior, didn't look at her as if she were just a waitress or a struggling artist. He seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts, her goals, and her future. "You know," Lucas said thoughtfully, stirring his coffee, "I admire your passion for your art. It's rare to see someone so determined despite the odds." Emma smiled softly, her fingers tapping nervously on the edge of her cup. "Well, I don't have much else. I guess I just have to keep pushing forward. Art's what keeps me going." There was a pause before Lucas spoke again, his tone more serious this time. "I can help with that. I know people in the industry who would be more than willing to look at your work. It's not about handing you an opportunity on a silver platter, it's about helping you find a way to make your dream a reality." Emma blinked, surprised by his words. She hadn't expected him to offer anything, especially not something so personal. I don't know what to say," she said, her voice soft. I've been working so hard to get noticed, but it's hard, you know? He smiled, his gaze softening. I get it. And that's exactly why I want to help. I don't want you to feel like you have to struggle alone. For a moment, Emma sat in silence, taking in what he had said. This wasn't just some friendly offer. There was sincerity in his eyes, and Emma couldn't help but feel like there was something more between them, something real. The conversation shifted back to lighter topics, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something bigger. As they said their goodbyes, Lucas gave her a firm handshake, his smile genuine. I'm glad we could talk, Emma. I'll be in touch. As she walked away from the cafe, Emma couldn't help but wonder what would come of this meeting. She had never expected to be offered anything like this, especially not from someone who seemed so out of reach. But maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something more. Something that would change everything for her. Little did she know, this encounter was just the beginning of a journey that would not only change her career but her life entirely. It had been a week since Emma's meeting with Lucas, and the weight of his words still lingered in her mind. She couldn't stop thinking about the offer he made, about how genuine he seemed, how different he was from anyone she had ever met. Despite the doubts that crept into her mind, she couldn't ignore the feeling that something big was unfolding. It wasn't just about art, it was about a chance to change her life, to leave behind the endless cycle of struggle. But even as she thought about it, she couldn't shake the fear that maybe this was too good to be true. The day after their coffee date, Lucas had sent her a follow-up message, just like he promised. He mentioned a charity event that he was hosting for young artists, inviting Emma to showcase some of her artwork. He had written, "This could be a great way for you to get noticed, and I'll be there to introduce you to the right people." Emma stared at the message for a while, her fingers hovering over the screen. Could this be real? Could someone like him actually be helping her? But it wasn't just the opportunity to showcase her work that made her hesitate, it was the growing connection between her and Lucas. Over the past week, they'd texted a few times, casually checking in with each other. He had asked about her day, her goals, and even offered advice on improving her skills. It was obvious he was invested in her success, but she couldn't help but wonder why. Was he being kind out of the goodness of his heart, or was there something else going on? Emma had spent the last few years burying her dreams, focused only on surviving. She had never had the luxury of wondering why someone would care about her ambitions. So when Lucas's offer to help seemed so genuine, it made her uneasy. She had learned to expect disappointment, and now, with Lucas offering more than just a chance at a career, she couldn't shake the fear of being let down. Despite her doubts, she couldn't ignore the opportunity. She replied to Lucas's message, agreeing to attend the charity event. "Thank you for the invitation. I would love to be part of it." She sent the message and immediately felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. This could be her chance to prove herself, but what if she wasn't ready? What if she wasn't good enough? The day of the event arrived, and Emma found herself standing in front of the venue, her heart pounding. It was a fancy art gallery, full of people in expensive suits and dresses, and the thought of stepping inside felt like stepping into another world. She stood there for a few moments, looking up at the building, wondering if she was making a huge mistake. What was she doing here? This wasn't her world. She was just a waitress with a dream. She took a deep breath and walked through the doors, immediately greeted by the sound of music and chatter. The room was filled with people admiring the artwork on the walls, sipping wine, and chatting in small groups. It was everything she had imagined, the kind of place where people like her never really got a chance to enter. As she made her way through the crowd, she saw Lucas standing near the center of the room, talking to a group of people. His eyes caught hers, and he flashed a smile that was warm and genuine. "Emma, I'm so glad you made it," Lucas said, his voice carrying above the hum of the crowd. He waved her over, and she made her way to him, her nerves still frayed. He introduced her to a few people, each one more important than the last, and as they talked, she realized that this wasn't just an event, it was a turning point. People were genuinely interested in her work, asking questions, admiring her style. It was a feeling she hadn't had in years, the feeling that someone saw her potential. As the night went on, Emma found herself speaking more and more, telling people about her art, about the struggles she had faced, and about her dream of opening her own studio. Lucas stayed by her side, occasionally stepping in to introduce her to more people or offer advice when needed. She could see the way people respected him, the way his presence made the room feel just a little bit brighter. And as the evening came to a close, Lucas walked her to the door, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. "I knew you had something special, Emma," he said quietly, his voice sincere. "I think tonight was just the beginning for you." She looked up at him, her heart pounding, not from nerves but from something else, a sense of possibility, of hope. Maybe this wasn't just about art. Maybe this was about something more. Maybe, just maybe, Lucas was offering her a chance at more than just success. Maybe he was offering her a chance at something real. As she walked out of the gallery that night, Emma couldn't help but smile. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was moving towards something greater. And with Lucas by her side, she wondered just how far this journey would take her. Little did she know, this event would be the start of a deeper connection between them, one that would change not only her career but her entire life. It had been a few weeks since the charity event, and Emma was still riding the high of that night. After her artwork received so much attention, she had been contacted by several people offering to showcase her work in other galleries. It was everything she had dreamed of and more. The opportunity Lucas gave her had opened doors she never thought possible. But there was something else happening that she hadn't anticipated, something she wasn't sure how to handle. Her feelings for Lucas had deepened. At first, she tried to push it aside, telling herself that it was just gratitude. He had helped her get her foot in the door, and that was all. But every time they spoke, every time they met, she felt a growing connection. Lucas was different from the men she had known in her life. He didn't look down on her, didn't treat her like she was beneath him. He listened. He cared, and the more she saw of him, the more she began to realize that there was something more between them. Something beyond the professional. One afternoon, as Emma was preparing for another gallery show, she received a message from Lucas. "I know you're busy, but I wanted to see if you'd like to grab dinner tonight. I've been thinking about how far you've come, and I want to talk about what's next for you." She stared at the message for a moment. Dinner? Just the two of them? She tried to push down the excitement that bubbled up inside her. This wasn't just about business anymore. But was she ready for it? Was she ready to face whatever this was between them? Despite her nerves, Emma agreed. "Dinner sounds great. What time?" That evening, she arrived at the restaurant a little earlier than planned, her nerves getting the better of her. The restaurant was upscale, intimate, with dim lighting and a quiet hum of conversation in the background. When Lucas walked in, looking effortlessly handsome in a dark suit, Emma felt her heart skip a beat. There was no denying it, now she was falling for him. He smiled warmly when he saw her, his eyes lighting up in a way that made her feel like she was the only person in the room. "You look amazing," he said as he greeted her, taking her hand gently. "I'm really glad you could make it." As they sat down, the conversation flowed easily, as it always did. They talked about everything, about Emma's art, about Lucas's work, about life in general. It felt so natural, so comfortable, like they had known each other for years. But underneath it all, there was an undeniable tension, a pull between them that neither of them could ignore. After a while, Lucas grew serious, his gaze softening as he looked at her. "Emma, I've been thinking a lot about everything we've talked about. About how far you've come, and how much potential you have. I've seen a lot of people over the years, but there's something about you, something that stands out. I want to help you even more. I want to make sure you have the support you need to succeed." Emma blinked, her heart pounding. She had heard these words before, people telling her she had potential, that they wanted to help her. But there was something different about Lucas's words. He wasn't just offering advice or a connection. He was offering something more, and for a moment, Emma felt vulnerable, unsure of what this meant. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've already helped me more than I could have imagined." Lucas reached across the table, taking her hand in his touch warm and steady. I mean that I want to invest in you. Not just your art, but in you as a person. I see something in you, Emma. Something worth believing in. Her breath caught in her throat. Was this what she thought it was? Was he telling her that he cared about her? Or was this just business? She could feel the weight of his words, the sincerity behind them, and for the first time in her life, Emma felt seen. Truly seen. I don't know what to say, she whispered, her emotions overwhelming her. I never expected any of this. I don't know if I'm ready for something like this. Lucas's smile softened, and he squeezed her hand gently. You don't have to be ready. I'm not asking for anything in return. I just want to see you succeed, and I want to be here to help you do that. No strings attached. Just support. Emma sat there for a moment, processing everything he had said. The weight of it all hung heavy in the air, but there was something freeing about it too. For the first time, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she was allowed to take the help. She was allowed to believe in herself and in the people who truly wanted to see her grow. As the evening went on, they talked more, but Emma's thoughts kept drifting back to Lucas's words. She was starting to see him in a new light, not just as a benefactor, but as someone who genuinely cared about her. And the more she thought about it, the more she realized that she might be falling for him too. By the time dinner ended, Emma felt a sense of peace that had eluded her for so long. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain: Lucas had opened her eyes to the possibility of something more, something real. As they said their goodbyes, Lucas leaned in and kissed her cheek, his lips lingering for just a second longer than necessary. I'm looking forward to seeing what you'll do next, Emma. I'm here, whenever you're ready. And as she walked away from the restaurant that night, Emma couldn't help but feel like her life was about to change in ways she hadn't even imagined. But no matter what came next, she knew one thing: she was ready to take a chance. The days that followed were a whirlwind for Emma. She found herself thrown into a world that felt as though it was moving too fast, but in a way that made her feel alive. With Lucas's support, her art had started to gain more attention than she ever imagined. She had been invited to showcase her work at multiple galleries, and even a few collectors had expressed interest in purchasing some pieces. But with all the excitement, there was something that had been nagging at her, something she couldn't ignore. It had been 2 weeks since their dinner, and every time they spoke or saw each other, Emma couldn't help but feel the pull between them growing stronger. She had told herself that she wouldn't let herself get too attached. This was about her art, her career, but the more time she spent with Lucas, the harder it was to ignore the connection that seemed to be blossoming between them. He had been patient, kind, and incredibly understanding. He treated her like an equal, not just a project, and that made her feel more than just grateful. It made her feel seen in a way she never had before. But with all these feelings swirling inside her, Emma was still scared. She had always been cautious with her heart, and the last thing she wanted was to ruin a good thing by letting her emotions get in the way. What if this was just a fleeting moment for Lucas, a business arrangement that he was simply being kind in? She wasn't sure if she was ready to find out. One afternoon, after finishing a meeting with a new art dealer, Emma found herself standing outside of her apartment building, her thoughts racing. As she scrolled through her phone, another message from Lucas popped up. I was thinking about you today. There's something I'd like to talk about. Can we meet later? Her heart skipped a beat. She had no idea what he wanted to discuss, but she couldn't deny the curiosity that flooded her. Was this about their last conversation? Was he starting to feel the same way she did? Or was this simply about her art and business? She knew she needed to face her fears, but she wasn't sure if she was ready to have the conversation she feared. She typed a quick reply, agreeing to meet him that evening. Sure, what time? When the evening came, Emma walked into the cafe where they had met before, her stomach a bundle of nerves. She sat at a small table near the window, waiting for him. The place was quiet, with soft jazz music playing in the background, and the dim lighting made the atmosphere feel intimate. When Lucas arrived, looking as polished as ever, Emma's heart raced. He smiled warmly as he sat down across from her, his eyes soft with a hint of something more. I've been thinking about everything, Emma, Lucas began, his voice calm but serious. About you, about us, and about the way things are developing. I know this started as something business-related, but I can't help but feel like there's something more here. Emma felt her breath catch in her throat. He was saying it out loud, what she had been trying to ignore for weeks. He was feeling it too. Her mind raced as she tried to gather her thoughts. She had known there was something between them, but hearing him say it aloud made everything real. I don't want to rush you, Lucas continued, his eyes locking onto hers. But I think we need to be honest with each other about what this is. It's not just about the art or business. I care about you, Emma. I care about you more than I thought I would, and I think we need to figure out where we go from here. The words hung in the air, thick with the weight of his confession. Emma felt a rush of emotion hit her, all at once: relief, fear, excitement, but most of all, she felt the overwhelming truth of what he was saying. He was offering her something real. Something that went beyond just a professional relationship. For a moment, Emma was silent, letting the words sink in. She had been afraid to acknowledge how deeply she felt for him, afraid of what that might mean for her future. But now, sitting across from him, she realized she didn't want to keep running from it anymore. I've been scared, she finally admitted, her voice soft but steady. Scared of what this could mean, scared of getting hurt. But I don't want to be scared anymore. I don't want to push you away. I think I feel the same way. Lucas's smile was slow and full of warmth, and when he reached across the table to take her hand, Emma felt a sense of calm wash over her. He wasn't going anywhere. And neither was she. So, what happens now? She asked, her voice barely a whisper, her heart racing with anticipation. Lucas leaned back in his chair, his gaze steady and full of promise. Now, we figure it out. Together. And as Emma sat there, with Lucas's hand still holding hers, she felt like everything had just clicked into place. She didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. This wasn't just a story about art. This was a story about two people, both looking for something real, and finding it in each other. The weeks that followed were filled with a sense of excitement and change for Emma. She had never felt more alive, and every step she took toward her dreams felt like it was falling into place. With Lucas by her side, she was no longer just a waitress with a passion for art, she was an artist on the rise. She had received multiple offers from galleries, and her social media had exploded with people interested in her work. For the first time, she felt like she was part of something bigger, something real. But as things began to grow, so did the challenges. Emma found herself balancing her growing art career and her newfound relationship with Lucas. They had become closer in the last few weeks, sharing late-night dinners, morning coffees, and long walks through the city, talking about everything and nothing. It felt natural, comfortable, and Emma had come to realize just how much she cared about him. But there was still one thing that lingered in the back of her mind: Lucas's world. The world of high-powered CEOs, investors, and business deals. She had never belonged to that world, and she wasn't sure if she ever would. One evening, as they were sitting on the rooftop of Lucas's apartment building, looking out at the city's skyline, Emma decided to ask the question that had been on her mind for weeks. Lucas, she began, her voice soft but unsure, I've been thinking a lot about everything that's been happening. About us, and about what this means for both of us. I know you're busy, and your life is different. I don't know if I fit into that world, the one you live in. I've never been someone who fits in with that kind of life. Lucas turned to face her, his expression soft, his eyes full of understanding. He had been waiting for this moment, knowing that eventually, Emma would have to confront her fears. He reached for her hand and gently squeezed it. Emma, he said, his voice steady and reassuring, I understand how you feel. But what I need you to know is that I don't want you to change. I love who you are, and I want to support you in whatever way I can. You don't have to fit into my world. I want us to build our own world, one where we both can thrive. I believe in you more than you know. His words hit her like a wave, washing away the doubts that had been clouding her mind. She realized then that it wasn't about fitting into a world that wasn't hers. It was about carving out a place for herself, a place that was true to who she was, with the person who believed in her. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice breaking slightly. "Scared of everything moving so fast. Scared of what happens if I fail. I've worked so hard to get here, Lucas. I don't want to lose it all, and I don't want to let you down." Lucas's eyes softened, and he reached out to brush a strand of hair away from her face. "You won't fail, Emma. You're already succeeding. And no matter what happens, I'm not going anywhere. I'm here, every step of the way." For a moment, they sat in silence, the city lights twinkling below them, the cool breeze ruffling their hair. Emma's heart felt full, her fears slowly dissipating with every word Lucas said. She didn't need to fit into his world because they were building their own. As they leaned in to kiss, the tension between them melted away. Emma realized that she didn't have to have everything figured out. She didn't have to be perfect. She just had to trust in herself, in her art, and in the love that was slowly blossoming between them. Over the next few weeks, Emma threw herself even more into her art, with Lucas's unwavering support. She held her first solo exhibition, and the response was overwhelming. People were eager to buy her work, and her name started to become known in the art world. But even with all the success, the one thing that filled her heart the most was Lucas's presence. He was there for every milestone, cheering her on from the sidelines, and even helping her negotiate deals with galleries. The more time they spent together, the more she realized that she had never felt more at home. One evening, after a particularly successful exhibition, Lucas surprised Emma with a small, intimate dinner on the rooftop of his apartment. As they sat under the stars, sharing a bottle of wine, Lucas turned to her, his gaze serious but filled with affection. "Emma," he began, his voice soft but firm, "I've been thinking about how far we've come. About everything we've built together, and about how much I care about you. I don't want to wait any longer. I want to ask you something." Emma's heart skipped a beat. Was this the moment? Was he about to ask what she thought he was? Lucas took her hand in his thumb gently brushing over her knuckles. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his voice filled with sincerity. For a moment, Emma was speechless. Her mind was racing, but all she could do was nod, tears welling in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, her voice full of emotion. "Yes, I will marry you." As they embraced, Emma realized that her life had taken a turn she could have never predicted. She had gone from a struggling waitress to a celebrated artist, and now, she was about to start a new chapter with the man who believed in her every step of the way. Together, they had built something beautiful, and Emma knew that this was just the beginning of an incredible journey. With Lucas by her side, Emma finally felt ready for whatever came next. As the days passed, Emma's life continued to evolve in ways she had never imagined. Her engagement to Lucas was met with excitement, both in her personal life and professionally. The support from him had opened up doors she hadn't even dreamed of, and as she prepared for their wedding, her art career was flourishing more than ever. But with all the success came new challenges. It wasn't just about making her mark in the art world anymore. It was about finding balance in her life, a life that was now shared with someone who was as ambitious and driven as Lucas. One evening, after a particularly busy week filled with gallery openings and meetings, Emma sat in the quiet of their apartment, looking at her phone. A message from Lucas popped up. "I need to talk to you about something. Can we meet tonight after your show?" Her heart sank. There was something in his words that made her nervous. She immediately replied, agreeing to meet him later that evening. Despite all the progress they had made, despite the love they shared, Emma couldn't shake the fear that something was wrong. The show had gone well, but her mind was far from it. As soon as the last guests had left, Emma quickly changed and met Lucas at the nearby cafe they frequented. She found him sitting at a corner table, his usual calm demeanor masking a certain tension she could feel across the room. "Lucas?" Emma asked, her voice unsure as she sat down. "What's going on?" Lucas looked at her for a moment, his expression softening. I've been thinking about us, about everything that's happened. His words felt heavy, and Emma's chest tightened as she waited for him to continue. I know we've made so many plans, but I think it's time we talk about the future. I've been offered a job in another city, and it would mean a huge opportunity for my career. But I need to know what you think about it. It's a big change. Emma's stomach dropped. She wasn't sure she had heard him right. Wait, you're moving? Lucas nodded. It's a great opportunity, Emma. But I want us to be on the same page. I don't want to make this decision alone. I want to know what you think. It would mean that we'd be separated for a while, and I need to know if you're willing to make that sacrifice. The weight of his words hit her like a ton of bricks. She had never imagined that the life they had been building together could be put on hold. She thought they were past the point of difficult decisions, but here they were, facing one. Emma's mind raced, her thoughts a whirlwind. She had always known that Lucas's career came with its own set of challenges, but she hadn't anticipated something like this. She knew how important this opportunity was for him. But what did it mean for them? Could she follow him to a new city, leaving behind the life she had worked so hard to build in her own world? Could she be with him and still follow her dreams? For a moment, she didn't know what to say. I don't know, Emma finally whispered. I've been so focused on my own work that I didn't stop to think about where we were going, about what kind of future we want together. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. I don't want to hold you back, Lucas, but I don't know if I'm ready to give up what we've built. Lucas's eyes softened, and he reached across the table, taking her hand in his. You're not holding me back, Emma. This isn't about that. This is about figuring out what's next for both of us. I want to be with you. But I also want us to be happy, and sometimes that means making tough decisions. I just need to know where you stand. The silence stretched between them, both of them contemplating what this decision meant. Finally, Emma looked up at him, her expression clear. I want to be with you, Lucas. But I need to figure out how to make both our dreams work. I don't want to lose what we've started, but I don't want to lose myself either. Lucas smiled, his eyes filled with relief. We'll figure it out, Emma. I know we will. Together. And for the first time in weeks, Emma felt a wave of calm wash over her. This wasn't the end of their journey, it was just another challenge they would face, together. And as long as they were on the same page, Emma knew they could handle whatever came next. As they left the cafe, hand in hand, Emma realized that the future wasn't always predictable. But it didn't matter. With Lucas by her side, she was ready to face whatever came their way. It had been a few days since their conversation at the cafe, and Emma couldn't stop thinking about what Lucas had said. She had spent the past few years focusing on her own goals, building her career, and making her own way in the world. The thought of stepping back from all of that, of moving to a new city, seemed impossible at first. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that the opportunity wasn't just about following Lucas, it was about figuring out how they could build a future together, while still holding on to their individual dreams. Lucas had called her the day after their talk, asking if she had given any thought to what they had discussed. She had told him that she was still unsure, but she wanted to figure out a way to make it work. He had been understanding, giving her space, but Emma knew she couldn't put off the decision for much longer. The following week, after finishing an exhibition at a local gallery, Emma found herself standing in the quiet of her apartment, her thoughts racing. She had spent so much time thinking about what she might lose, but not enough time thinking about what she could gain. The chance to start fresh, to join Lucas in a new city, could be the next step towards something bigger, something that they could both build together. As she sat down on the couch, her phone buzzed with a message from Lucas. I've been thinking about us. I know the decision isn't easy, but I want you to know that no matter what you decide, I'll support you. This isn't just about me, it's about us. Let's talk tonight. I love you, and we'll figure this out. Her heart fluttered at the words. I love you. It was the first time he had said those words, and it made everything feel so real, so permanent. She had never imagined that love would feel like this, like a steady, unwavering presence that offered support no matter what. And suddenly, all her fears seemed smaller, more manageable. That evening, Emma met Lucas at his apartment. The moment she walked in, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. He was there, waiting for her, looking as calm and collected as always. But she could see the hint of worry in his eyes, the same worry that she had been carrying around herself. "Hey," she said softly, walking toward him. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, about our future. And I think I've figured it out." Lucas's eyes brightened, but he didn't interrupt her. He just waited patiently, his hands resting on the arm of the chair. "I've always been afraid of change, of taking that leap," Emma continued, sitting down next to him. "But I realize now that staying in my comfort zone isn't the answer. I've built something I'm proud of, but I want more. I want a future with you. And if that means moving to a new city, then I'm willing to take that step." Lucas reached out, taking her hand in his grip firm and reassuring. "You don't have to do this for me, Emma. But if you're ready, I want us to take this step together. I want us to build a life, a future where we both get to be who we are, but also who we want to be together." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with affection. "I'm ready, Lucas. I'm ready to build something with you. I love you too." Lucas's smile deepened, and he leaned in to kiss her gently. "This is just the beginning, Emma. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." And in that moment, everything felt clear. The decision wasn't about what they might lose, it was about the possibility of what they could gain. They were about to embark on a new journey, and Emma knew that as long as they had each other, nothing else really mattered. As they held each other, Emma felt a wave of peace wash over her. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of the future. She was ready to face it, hand in hand with the person she loved. Months had passed since Emma made the decision to join Lucas in the new city, and life had changed in ways she hadn't expected. She was thriving in her career, her art becoming more recognized than ever. With Lucas by her side, she had found a new sense of purpose, not just in her work, but in her life as a whole. Moving to the city had been a challenge, but it had also been the best decision she had ever made. One crisp evening, Emma stood in front of the easel in her new studio, working on a painting that felt like the culmination of everything she had been through. The city outside was bustling, the skyline glowing with life, but in her studio, there was a quiet peace. It was exactly what she had wanted: a space to create, to grow, and to feel at home. She glanced over at the door when she heard it creak open. Lucas walked in, his usual calm demeanor in place, but there was something different about the way he looked at her, like he was seeing her for the first time. He smiled and crossed the room to her, his presence steady and comforting. "You're amazing, Emma," he said softly, standing beside her. "I knew you were talented, but watching you work like this, seeing how much you've grown, it's incredible." Emma's heart swelled at his words. He had always been her biggest supporter, but hearing him say it now, after everything they had been through, made it feel even more real. She set down her brush and turned to face him. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes meeting his. "I couldn't have done this without you, Lucas. You believed in me when I didn't. You gave me the chance to follow my dreams, and now I'm living them." He reached out and cupped her face gently, his eyes filled with affection. "You've done all the hard work, Emma. You've earned this. And I'm just happy I get to be part of your journey." For a moment, they stood there, the city's noise far away, lost in the quiet of the studio. Emma realized that, in this moment, everything had come together. She had everything she had ever dreamed of: a successful career, the love of someone who truly understood her, and the freedom to be herself. As they walked outside later that evening, Lucas turned to her with a mischievous grin. "So, I was thinking," he began, "it's time we made it official. What do you say we take the next step?" Emma looked at him, her heart racing with anticipation. "What do you mean?" Lucas smiled, pulling out a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. I think it's time we made our own little family, he said, opening the box to reveal a beautiful engagement ring. Emma, will you marry me? Her breath caught in her throat. This was the moment she had been dreaming of, the one she hadn't even realized she was waiting for. She looked at Lucas, her eyes filling with tears of joy. Yes, she whispered, her voice barely audible, but full of love. Yes, I will marry you. Lucas slipped the ring onto her finger, his smile wide and full of happiness. As they embraced, Emma felt like everything in her life had led up to this moment. She had found love, success, and most importantly, herself. They stood there, under the stars, knowing that the journey they had started together was just beginning. Together, they had built something beautiful, something real. And with the promise of a lifetime ahead of them, Emma couldn't wait to see where the road would take them next. As they walked hand in hand through the quiet streets, Emma realized that love wasn't about finding someone to complete you, it was about finding someone who encouraged you to be your best self. With Lucas by her side, she knew that she could face whatever the future held, as long as they faced it together. Months had passed since Emma made the decision to join Lucas in the new city, and life had changed in ways she hadn't expected. She was thriving in her career, her art becoming more recognized than ever. With Lucas by her side, she had found a new sense of purpose, not just in her work, but in her life as a whole. Moving to the city had been a challenge, but it had also been the best decision she had ever made. One crisp evening, Emma stood in front of the easel in her new studio, working on a painting that felt like the culmination of everything she had been through. The city outside was bustling, the skyline glowing with life, but in her studio, there was a quiet peace. It was exactly what she had wanted: a space to create, to grow, and to feel at home. She glanced over at the door when she heard it creak open. Lucas walked in, his usual calm demeanor in place, but there was something different about the way he looked at her, like he was seeing her for the first time. He smiled and crossed the room to her, his presence steady and comforting. "You're amazing, Emma," he said softly, standing beside her. "I knew you were talented, but watching you work like this, seeing how much you've grown, it's incredible." Emma's heart swelled at his words. He had always been her biggest supporter, but hearing him say it now, after everything they had been through, made it feel even more real. She set down her brush and turned to face him. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes meeting his. "I couldn't have done this without you, Lucas. You believed in me when I didn't. You gave me the chance to follow my dreams, and now I'm living them." He reached out and cupped her face gently, his eyes filled with affection. "You've done all the hard work, Emma. You've earned this. And I'm just happy I get to be part of your journey." For a moment, they stood there, the city's noise far away, lost in the quiet of the studio. Emma realized that, in this moment, everything had come together. She had everything she had ever dreamed of: a successful career, the love of someone who truly understood her, and the freedom to be herself. As they walked outside later that evening, Lucas turned to her with a mischievous grin. "So, I was thinking," he began, "it's time we made it official. What do you say we take the next step?" Emma looked at him, her heart racing with anticipation. "What do you mean?" Lucas smiled, pulling out a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. "I think it's time we made our own little family," he said, opening the box to reveal a beautiful engagement ring. "Emma, will you marry me?" Her breath caught in her throat. This was the moment she had been dreaming of, the one she hadn't even realized she was waiting for. She looked at Lucas, her eyes filling with tears of joy. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible, but full of love. "Yes, I will marry you." Lucas slipped the ring onto her finger, his smile wide and full of happiness. As they embraced, Emma felt like everything in her life had led up to this moment. She had found love, success, and most importantly, herself. They stood there, under the stars, knowing that the journey they had started together was just beginning. Together, they had built something beautiful, something real. And with the promise of a lifetime ahead of them, Emma couldn't wait to see where the road would take them next. As they walked hand in hand through the quiet streets, Emma realized that love wasn't about finding someone to complete you, it was about finding someone who encouraged you to be your best self. With Lucas by her side, she knew that she could face whatever the future held, as long as they faced it together.